Afternoon, everybody. As you see, Julie's in on this. She's probably gonna help me on this. So this is my, well, I've done Zoom, but not like Zoom, like the whole full-fledged. So if you see here, like giving me some ideas, that is why. So when I thought about this hands-on math in a virtual world, this is what happened to me like 3 weeks ago. I'm going to give you this. Do you want to read that? So what happened is my daughter-in-law picked up my grandson's homework. The teacher said, Kim will probably not like all these worksheet packets. And then she said, and frankly, I don't either. And so then, of course, Henry brought all these worksheet packets to me and we worked on them one day. And I was thinking, so how can I make this more hands-on? So as we're going through different things, I'm scrambling around the house, looking for stuff for Henry to count with, looking for him to make tens and ones with, looking for him to measure with. And so this whole idea came to me, like, how can we make like a worksheet more interactive? Or how can we use something online to be more interactive that connects with the current curriculum? So this is just kind of ideas that I thought of. Be sure and add more in the chat line and we'll add them to our resources that we have. And you should have the resources. Have we sent them to them, Julie? Have I given them to them?
Yep, I chatted in the chat. All the resources are at tie.link/online. And then if they click on content and then math, they will be able to see everything that we're talking about today.
Alrighty, so we're definitely going to add to that. That's a working document. So as you see something and it's not on there, be sure and put it in the chat. And then we will revise that document later on today. So these are things that we would want in a perfect world. We would want students actually engaging with the math, doing, they would have those concrete tools or manipulatives that connect them with worksheets they do. And then they would finally connect them to numbers that they're using. So this might be an example of what that would look like. So as we think about how students learn with those concrete first, actually using those physical objects, connecting those to some picture drawing, and then finally using numbers and strategies to make connections. So this is an example of what that might look like. You see the math tools above, you see some type of diagram and picture, then you just see the, in elementary, sometimes we call those the naked numbers, but that is just the equation without the use of anything. So we would hope that as we go through these virtual mathematics and we're thinking about how we're going to make those connections, I want you to think about what type of connection does that make for the students, right? Where are they at now? What type of connection are they making? So here's an example of a student who is playing a game online, but he's also using Unifix cubes. And Unifix cubes can be used a lot. And if you see like in the background too, you can see like that might have been a lesson that the student might be using, has to make a connection to. So just because they're doing an online game and they have the manipulative online, they are also thinking about how they could build that and making that connection. So they're making a connection that in this lesson is specific math content, and in some way they're interacting with that math content. So this is another example of a student playing the game and they have that number line in front of them. So sometimes it's just not enough to see that online. They actually, again, need to manipulate. They need to move somehow. Here's an example of what I call something that's static. It's online, it's just a picture. But in this example, so this isn't a touch screen. They have actually put some kind of overlay on top. And the student's actually taking a dry erase marker with that overlay. It's like a sheet protector. And then thinking about which of those drawings have a line of symmetry. So you could do that with just about anything that you do. So again, this example doesn't move. They talked about students had a stylus. If they had a, it could be a straw, it could be a coffee stirrer, it could be a pencil. It could be something that they can put that line in the middle. But again, so they're thinking about what it is. And this is a good example of going from that totally concrete, because they don't have anything in front of them, but they have this picture and they're trying to think about what makes the symmetry. So before we go any further, I want you to think about, and I want you to put in the chat box, what virtual tools does your curriculum currently have? Are there games in there? Are there lesson instructions, possibly with videos? Are there embedded worksheets? Is there some kind of vocabulary or content support? So if you could stick that in the chat line, we'll wait a couple minutes and think about that.
Also, if you want to know what math curriculum you use currently, that can help us as we provide you with resources that may be out there.
That's good, Julie. I'm going to go to Pearson Realize, as I use that quite a bit. But if you have other curriculum that you use, we'd want to add that, especially if they had some free resources at this time. Okay, Jan, I think you can get some good ideas in how you teach Spanish with what we're doing with this. There are some CPM ideas, Melissa, and I'll add those to this. So I'm just giving math examples today, but I think you could do this with anything you do in reading, in history, social studies, science. It could be in any content areas. How are you going to make that connection from the book to using something virtual that makes sense and follows your curriculum? Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples from Pearson Realize. One thing, even if you don't use this material, I want you to think about what it has. So as you're thinking about what you want to do, is how can you use this for games that you might want to do or resources that you might want to show your students. Let me go back. I would have this all in, but they make me, they keep timing me out. So if you look up here where it says tools, some examples, on this it has different math tools, and this is just different virtual manipulatives that students can use, and I'll be showing you some of those. So even if you don't have those in your curriculum, that might be something that you glean from this today. Games, every game that the student learns in that grade level is online. So one of the things you might think about is if you want to add a game or embed a game in your curriculum, how might you use that? How might that connect with your current curriculum? So another thing they have on there is it's math words and ideas, which is actually just like a vocabulary, an online dictionary that you might have. So one of the things as I'm thinking about this right now, they don't have any of these on our resource page, so we can add some of these. But if a student was having trouble with a certain topic, they could click on that topic and get some ideas. And I'm just going to give you one example. And again, this is from investigations. But I want you to think about, do you have any of this that you have not used before. That might be something you want to think about. Okay, I haven't used it, but now I want to use it. And how could I do that now with the virtual learning? So this here gives examples. And on the last page, I wanted to show you something in this. And many of the things you do, it might just have a straightforward problem or a game to do. I want you to think about with whatever that you do is how can you make that open-ended, right? So it could be instead of saying 4 plus 7 or 327 plus 428, I want you to think about how you can change that up so it's just more than one problem. And in this example, the students keep turning over cards and making a different equation. So how could you ramp that up if you were doing something for an upper grade like 3 through 5? What might that look like? So I want you to be thinking about, you might have something just for that game, but how could you change up that game so it's so you would add on to it. It's just not a one-time deal. What I'm trying to say. So again, after today, if you're not haven't used any of this in your curriculum, I want you to think about how you can go back and look at that. Just like the teacher in the very beginning that was like, so she told me something like, we had virtually 2 days to prepare for this. And this isn't how I would like to teach. By the end of the next week, I'm going to have some more stuff, some online resources for math and reading. But right now, we just had to get something out. Right now, I didn't even have time to look at my curriculum for things that were possible. So that might be something that you're going to do. So in that Pearson realized, this is the teacher that made a choice board. So you may have done something like this. We're going to put examples on the resource sheet. But if you look down here, here's a game close to 100, which is in the curriculum of investigations. So that teacher put it in the choice board. And this is the students doing just with cards that they turn over. But you could actually take that and play that game online. One of the advantages of this is you have this recording sheet that you can use over and over and over again, right? And it might be something the student does. They could take a picture of one of their rounds. They could upload that to you to show the work that they've done. But again, think about all the possibilities you could have with this game. So this is an example of a student interacting with the number line, but I want you to think about, what if the student didn't have a Chromebook? They don't have internet at home. So I believe Rapid City didn't have all their Chromebooks out for like 2 weeks, depending on which school you're at. So if the teacher just has the computer, students don't, could the teacher have, by the end of the next week, sent home some type of black line masters, right? The student doesn't have a 10 frame, but they have in front of them a 10 frame that they can use. They don't have number cards, they don't have dice, they don't have pattern blocks. Could we make those and send them home with the kids in packets? So again, as the teacher, she's doing the virtual teaching, and the student has something in front of them that they can actually manipulate. So I was doing that with my grandson, Henry, because I'm a math teacher. I had some little 10 frame cards. I had some Unifix cubes. I had some counters. But what if the parent didn't have that? So again, I want you to look in your curriculum. Do you have black line masters for your kids that you could make a packet for them? They could pick up from the school and they could interact with you. And I want to, if you don't have black line masters, this is a great resource. It's on the bottom of your page. But this is just an example of some of the kindergarten resources. And this is from Howard County. But we put down there black line masters for every single grade level, K through 5. And they may have some for middle school too. We'll have to look on that. So they have black line masters. Here's some virtual tools. So if I didn't list them, this might be another go-to place for you to look at. There's even dice here, right? But I think this is a good connection. So the teachers doing the virtual learning, the virtual teaching, and the student in some way is interacting with that game or lesson that the teacher is teaching. So let's go to, I want to show you a couple different programs, and these are called adaptive curriculum. Would you put in the chat box if you've used Dreambox before? So how many do we have, Julie? Anybody?
Amanda has, 2 no's, Jan and Melissa have not, and Katie hasn't, and Mrs. Bueller hasn't. So Amanda has used it before. Nobody
Amanda,
else
could
has.
you unmute and tell us how you have used Dreambox in your classroom or in the past?
So I don't use it currently this year, but when I taught at Red Shirt, I used it for a couple of years with kids, and we would have it be a supplemental piece because we would meet with small groups, and while we were meeting with small groups, I would have like a group of students working on that. It was nice because it provided a lot of support for kids to go through activities on their own, and it was something that a lot of kids could do independently, and they weren't reliant on like me for specific instruction to be able to do the activities.
Okay. So I'm just going to show a very short clip of what that might look like before I tend to jump different screens here. It's not going for me. Julie, is that because I'm like sharing it? It's not actually in real time?
No, it should go.
Yeah.
What do students think about when they use Dreambox Learning Math? They think about where they're headed, what they should learn, and when they could use some practice. They think about who they are and the personal progress they're making. They think about how numbers work and why math makes sense. When they have to make a decision or even have as many as 100 options to choose from, they think critically and have their own ideas. They think it's worth celebrating their progress and how nice it is that they're not doing the same thing at the same time on the same day as everyone else in their class. They realize math gives them tools to show what they are really thinking. They know there are many ways to solve a problem and believe they are the heroes who can figure out great ways to tame
Okay,
monsters.
I'm going to stop there. And I've lost my screen, Julie.
Alt-tab.
It's okay. I did it the slow way.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Jan asks, is Dreambox only on an iPad?
No, it's not. Kids can use it on a computer. Amanda, would you agree with that? You've seen kids use it on their Chromebooks?
We've had MacBooks and we've used them on streams before, so they should work on just about any device.
Okay. The reason I shared this is because if parents sign up by April 30th, they can get a free 90-day trial program. So, but the clinch is they have to sign up by April 30th. So one of the reasons I liked it also is because you may have the teacher doing their online lessons. If you have a student, you have a child that needs extra practice, needs an extension, needs a challenge, this might be a great thing for them to do. Amanda, as I understand it, they give them some type of assessment and they start out where they are and they're learning with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit similar to Prodigy in respect to like you put in the information or the parent or whatever about grade level, but then it kind of adapts from that point. So it might start off at grade level curriculum, but it'll go lower or higher depending upon where the student's at.
Right. So one of the things that's nice about adaptive curriculum is students get that immediate feedback, right? And you're not going to see that, you won't see that in a game. That was in investigations. whether it's right or wrong. But in adaptive curriculum, you usually get some type of immediate feedback to show you like where to go next, or if you got it wrong, there's some type of hint, some type of clue, some type of video. So it is, as Amanda said, it can be independent, it can be used outside of the curriculum, but it can be used with the curriculum. So that's some really good stuff. So just keep in mind, it has to be within 90 days. And you may already have some of that you're using in your school. So I wanted to show you probably the two sites that I really liked that support the curriculum, some math tools that you could use automatically. You're using your online curriculum, but the students don't have those tools at home. These are probably my two top resources, so I wanted to look at them. So Math Learning Center has, which is curriculum, has some math free apps. And what I like about these apps is they can be used for many grades. They're just not a one and done, just for kindergarten and just for third grade or just for fifth grade. They're very adaptable. So fractions could be a 3 through 5. Geoboard, depending on what you're doing with 2D shapes, could be a K5 program. I wanted just to show you. So let's go, I'm gonna click on Geoboard and let you look at that. So if you wanted to, I have put that in your, I have hyperlinked on that. So if you want to do the same thing and get on that and look at it with me, you sure can. So in this, again, you can open it as a web app, an Apple Store, Chrome Store. So there's like 3 different choices how you can do that. So what I like about this, if you look at, I can make different kinds of grids. This is a 4x4 is the most common. So I can change up the grid. So I can make it bigger. If I want a circle one, I can make a circle grid. I can choose to have lines or not with that. I can choose to have numbers or not with that. So there's like many choices on that. If you're taking your rubber band, so let's put in the chat room how might you use this geoboard depending on what grade you're at. What might that look like? So I want you to think about your geometry and measurement. What might you use this geoboard for? So take a minute, and you might want to play on it. Think about what you might use that for. Area and perimeter. This could be really open, couldn't it, Melissa? I was thinking about today with area, like build a shape that has an area of 12 square units or 6 square units, and or build something with perimeter. And even asking them that question, does perimeter change when you're doing the area? When is that the same? When is it different? Transformations, shape attributes, yes. So when I'm thinking about shape attributes, that could be a K5 also, right? What grade is Donovan? What grade would transformations be? 8th grade, okay. So we found something for middle school, thanks. It could be something open-ended like, how many different quadrilaterals could you make, right? How many 6-sided shapes could you make? When you're talking about regular sided shapes, regular polygons and non-regular polygons. So I think this could be endless. So you could have it go exactly with your lesson that day. If you're doing a lesson on quadrilaterals with area or with perimeter. So it could be something specific, or you could ask them this very open-ended question where you're going to have several answers. And then you might have the student share the next day one of their ideas, something that they did. I was thinking on this one too, is what if you had given them the grid paper. So as they make a quadrilateral or they make something with the area, they take that geoboard blackline master and they copy that to their geoboard blackline master. That could be something they upload or take a picture of. So you have them doing virtually, but you have them doing it on the black line for you. That is then uploaded as an example to show you that they've done the work if you want to see that. So again, you've taken that pictorial, you've taken that, this is like that concrete, and I didn't say it earlier, but when I'm thinking about concrete, pictorial, and abstract, virtual manipulatives kind of fit in between both of those. It's not this totally concrete, it's not a totally pictorial, but it's a combination, like the beauty of both, right? And it fits in between that pictorial and the abstract. So it's not, again, it's not a total abstract, but you could add numbers with that, right? But you do see this type of picture on there. So when you think about virtual manipulatives, it fits in between each of those representations that we'd want to see. So again, you can have them numbered. There's different, you can write with it, right? There's different drawing tools you can do it. So one of the things I like about Math Learning Center is you're not overwhelmed with a bunch of different things. So somebody was saying about area. So again, it shows you different things that students might do with it. Fractions. What if you're doing fractions? Circular fractions, that might be something they do. You could also do fractions on a geoboard. What's 1/2 of 1/2? What is 1/2 times 1/2, right? Or 1/2 divided by 1/2. So if the students don't understand fractions, why you get a bigger number or why you get a smaller fraction, geoboards would be perfect for that. So as you look at this, I wanted to show you another one. So this could be used for lots of things, fractions, especially grades 3 through 5. Math clock, this is a real K2. Students could have a clock in front of them as you're doing the math clock. Money, number line, number frames. Number pieces are, if you're thinking about place value. So it would have the hundreds base 10 piece, it would have the tens base piece, it would have the ones base piece. So if you're really thinking about place value, multi-digit numbers, this would be where you would want to go. Even multiplying, dividing, students could make their arrays with this. I wanted to show you the number rack. So especially if you're K2, this is an awesome tool to have. And if I was a teacher and I would have had time with this, I would have actually made the students their own number rack, and we'll include the directions on that as a take-home tool. So just to begin, students might have this simple 20 frame, 10 on the top, 10 on the bottom. It's divided by the 5s, right? So you're thinking, is this only a K2 tool? No, it could go way beyond that. But for this one, the students will practice their combinations within 20. So you can actually move it. I might say something, if 1 + 1 is 2, they're practicing their doubles. What is 2 + 1? If 2 + 2 is 2, what is 3 + 2? So some of the things I could do as a teacher, I could actually write what the student said on the top. We might do all those doubles combinations, and I might say, what do you notice about all those? And some student might say, hey, when I count by 2s, I see those numbers, or they're all even numbers. One of the things you can do on this, you can add as many racks as you want to, many combinations of 10. So if you are a 3 through 5 teacher, students could practice their multiplication on this. So if they're practicing their 2s, they could actually count through. So I might say 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, and they would go down. So I could add up 10 rows, and I haven't tried to see if you could add more, but definitely 10 rows. It might be something like, find the number 57, make the number 57. And if I'm a K2 student, I want to be able to make that number without counting all of these beads. So I want to see if my students can find that number very quickly. Are they able to count by tens and then just see 7 more. So if I would have had thought about this when I was working with Henry, who was in kindergarten, he had the number like 13. So I might have said something, Henry, can you make the number 13 as quickly as possible? Now, right away, I can tell, I can assess him if he would have counted one at a time, right? Up to 10, and then counted 3 more. So this would be a great assessment tool for the students. If you were doing this online, if you were doing this in small groups, you might be able to see how they did this. And I'm thinking, if you can't actually see them doing it, why not give the parents a checklist, have the student make some numbers, and ask the parent a question like, how did your students count? 57. Did they count 1 at a time? Did they go by tens? And just have the parent write a little note, because you can't always see what the students are doing at home, right? You have a short time to give a lesson, and they do something. So I want you to think about how you could get the parents on board, especially in elementary, to help you do that assessment. So I don't want the teacher to check all of Henry's pages in his packets. I would hope that she might say something like, just sign off on what he's done. And can you show evidence of this? So this is one of the ways that parents could show evidence. So this is my other fave. So if I'm only going to use 2, and there's lots of them, I'll show some other examples. What I like about DDAX is there are instructions. So if you don't know how to use that manipulative, you have examples here. And it actually has like little videos for you to go through and gives you some examples. So again, it's a really good resource. But it also has some free activities. So if you want to see how they embed that virtual manipulative within a lesson, you might want to try one of those. I believe they have at least 1 at each grade level. If you're embedding this in your current curriculum, like you actually want to have it embedded in your lesson that you do, there are some embed codes. Now, I don't know if they're going to work for all platforms, but that would be something you certainly would want to try out. So if you if you look at this, this isn't like real overwhelming, but it gives you a good place to start, right? So when I think about all these activities, they could be used with your current curriculum. You would do something online with your students. They would then go back and do something online in their own. If they had their computer. If they didn't have their computer, you could do a Blackline Master with that. But again, the teacher's doing it and then the students doing it. So this is one time when you see students and teachers both using the virtual. And if you don't know, like if you did have time, we're hoping this doesn't happen again, but if you did have time, one of the things I want you to think about during this time is if I was going to send home manipulatives with my students, either Blackline or some extra ones that I had, what might those be, right? I could send home a 10 frame and ask the parent to use beads or something, right? I might be able to send home some type of 2-color counters. You could make you could make a reckon rack or a math rack with them. You could certainly give them a number line, but maybe by grade level, think about what are those must-haves that my kids need to have if they have to go home and I won't see them for an extended length of time. What would that look like? Okay. If you use anything else, and this is the third one I'd recommend. This is schoolkidapps.com. Julie actually found this for me. It is, you can use it on your iPhone or use it on your iPad only. There are, I'm only showing 10 here, but there are 19 different apps that you could use for your students. Sorry about that, guys. My dog has found a deer. These are a couple of examples of online resources that I call open-ended. I'm checking for time here. The reason I call them more open-ended, because if you look at them, it's kind of like a, I don't want to say an anything goes, but it really supports that problem solving. Students can on their own build something, do something, and then you might give them an open-ended question about that. So when I think about manipulatives, the virtual manipulatives, if I'm playing an online game with my students, I'm playing close to 100, that's something I would call a static virtual tool, because close to 100 game is for one purpose only. I'm playing close to 100. These activities here, and the reason I put them in a different category is students have to actually build the math rack. So instead of having that built for them in the one I showed you earlier, they have to build this. So these all involve some more problem solving than the other activities have. So again, I call them open-ended, I call them dynamic. There's quite a bit of more problem solving than there was in the other ones. MathBots is another one. So my 8th grade teacher, these might be some, I'm thinking there's some ones up here that might be for you, and we're gonna look at those. The coordinate grids are different. So again, this goes way beyond, there's algebra types in this, algebra, this could be used in middle school. But as you look at this, I see this as kind of a cross between something static and something, or not, they're definitely not static, but they're not quite as open-ended as the one I showed you before. I also think if you have some students that need a challenge, right? They're done with the lesson. These are things that we usually don't find in the grade level curriculum. We usually don't find pentominoes. We usually don't find tangrams, right? We usually don't find these blocks up here. We might not find these number frames. This is certainly different, Hungarian frame. I've never seen that. So I like this one because it's ramped up. You have more for upper elementary, you have some for middle school. We usually don't use Cuisinart rods. So if your students are ahead, these would definitely, this is definitely would be a good place to go to give them some extra activities. Again, so when you think of open-ended and dynamic, if you looked at this, the students have to totally create something and then think about what they've created. So I gave you the Math Playground resource. I do think it's more open-ended and dynamic than just a static resource. I wanted to give you a short example of any game that you do that's not in your curriculum. I gave the example of SplashLearn.com. Again, as the students are playing their game, and if this isn't enough for them, count the ones and tens in the number, they could have cubes or counters in the front of them. I took part of this away on purpose because it had some like little fish down here, like it had 5 answers. And I'm thinking that if I was a teacher building a brand new curriculum, I could take that part of the game, I could make it static and not have any answers down here, right? I wouldn't have this up here. So this was the final answer, but I might just have this part right here on different worksheet examples that they could have, and I'm not going to have the fish with all the choices. So this might be an option where you could create a game for your students. It's SplashLearn.com. You do have to have a free teacher account or a free parent account. And as far as I know, it's always going to be free. It's been free this entire year. So as I was thinking about this was a game. And let's say a teacher was doing this game with a student, you might say something to your students like, tomorrow, we're going to be using coins. We're working on making change with pennies, dimes, nickels, and quarters. Or all this week or all next week, we're working on money. So I want you to have this money with you as you play these games, right? I want you to have 10 pennies. I want you to have some nickels, some dimes, some quarters, because I'm going to be saying an amount and I want to see if you can make it. So the teacher has the virtual, the student has the concrete. Again, they're making that tool and they're sharing that example with their teachers. What if she said something like, how could you make 57 cents? Think of how many different ways students could make that and share their learning. So this is an example how I've taken a game I've come up with a open-ended something, but I've told the kids ahead of time what I need, right? I want you to bring quarters, or I want you to get something that you can count, or I want you to get something. I was thinking of multiplication. My granddaughter took out all my little coffee filters. That'd be a great tool to practice your multiplication, putting things in groups. So in this case, I'm telling the parents ahead of time, I'm telling the students ahead of time what they want, what I want them to bring, and it's some type of tool or manipulative that they would have in their house, right? I'm even going to extend that further. So I had the virtual, I had the concrete that they were doing, and I could take that same idea, and this is an example with muffin tins, right? So how can you take the virtual, how can you connect it to the pictorial, and how can you actually have them do something at home with something that they might have in their house, okay? So I have went pretty fast on this. Do you have any questions as we go into the last slide? Oh, you take that back. Can you use defined percents as well? Let me check on that one, okay? That's a good question, Melissa. All the websites that I have done today, except Dreambox, as I understand it, Julie Erickson said Zern has always been free, but all the websites that I have showcased today have always been free. You've never had to pay. And so if there's something that you do have to pay for at a certain time of year, I'll put that stipulation on there, but I've tried to use go-to sites that I have used year in and year out that have always been free. So yes. Any other questions? You can also put in that chat if there's things you would like on that resource page that we have missed, and we will definitely add those to that. So I want to try to give you some resources that were not overwhelming, right? Because you already have a curriculum, you already have some go-to things that you're doing this year. So you might want to say, I can't do any of these this year. I'm going to kind of put them in a bucket and put them aside, but it might be something that I'll try next year. Or I could tweak a lesson here and there, but I want it to be, I definitely wanted to support your curriculum. So if you have anything else that you think of, be sure and email me and we will add it to that resource page. And I wanted to have you think about this final checklist. So as you're thinking about virtual manipulatives, I'm having a hard time saying that word manipulatives today. There was a kindergartner who their parent was a teacher, and he came home and he said he was working with his teacher's manipulatives, and so she didn't quite understand what she was saying. It sounded more like tits instead of manipulative, so she was kind of confused about that. But as you look at this, is your virtual manipulatives linked to some type of math content? It should be supporting whatever you're doing that day. It shouldn't just be, or it should be review. It should just be, hey, we're just going to do this fun activity today. Does it support your existing curriculum? Do you see that somehow helping students progress from one level to the next, from moving to concrete, pictorial to abstract? And again, as you do some evaluations, this would be especially true with any adaptive curriculum. Like you saw the geoboard examples, you saw the number rack examples where you could do different things with them. Can you adjust the level of difficulty? Does it provide some type of feedback? So in a game that Splash Learn, it provided immediate feedback. Adaptive Learning has some immediate feedback. Can they do it independently? And I like the last question. If you're going to have your students do this, especially with the parents, do you need to accompany, does there need to be some kind of directions or instructions? So the parents are like going, oh my goodness, I don't know how to do this. We're just not going to do it. And they're getting really frustrated. So those are some of the things I want you to think about as you add virtual manipulatives to your program. So Julie, can you think of anything else that I've missed?
No, I learned so much about math. I'm so excited.
I need to get like excited as you do when you present, so I'm going to work on that one. But definitely shoot me an email. I think this is a new topic, and as I am watching all the feedback and everything that's happening on Facebook with teachers, this is one of the things that is like really interested me is how can we help teachers with this online learning and connect it with their current math so they don't have to go and scramble for all this other stuff. So what I wanted to say to you is I think what you have is enough. Validate what you're doing right now. And I want you to say to yourself that you don't have to do all this other stuff to add to your curriculum. You can do some little tweaks here and there and make it doable for all the students in you. Yes? Alrighty, thank you guys for coming for my first webinar. I appreciate y'all. We should send you a certificate or a, hey, go to Dairy Queen. But, no.
But we're
Thank you
social
very much.
distancing, so thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.